letting people go is hard. If you're like me, then the people you have in your life are deeply cherished. Each friendship, each romantic partner, even family members, they all mean something to you. But sometimes those relationships falter. Sometimes you get into a disagreement, sometimes you fight about whatever, and sometimes they leave your life. That's something that I've sort of been reckoning with recently. Over the past, I want to say, few weeks, I've definitely been struggling with some interpersonal relationships, and I kind of wanted to just get on here and talk about that today with special guest Kat. What do you say, bud? Huh? Letting people go is hard, mostly because I'm lonely, mostly because I don't see people as things. I don't see them as replaceable like so many other people do. I feel like the general consensus amongst just human beings is that where one leaves, there's a million other to replace them. And that's always sort of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't like to imagine my friendships, my intimate relationships with people as being something that if this falls apart, I can easily replace you. When I was 17 years old, my boss at my shitty grocery store job, when I asked him to change my hours because the school year was approaching, told me that no, first of all, he said, no, we're not switching your hours. And he also told me that if you're not okay with that, I've got a list of like 20 applicants who I can replace you with. Your call. This is a grown-ass man. I was 17, like I said at the time. I'll never forget going into the break room and crying to my dad, telling him that they wouldn't change my hours for me, that I was going to be stuck, as the school year kicked off, trying to catch my bearings, trying to gather my bearings, being overworked. Now, what does that have to do with what I'm talking about, letting people go? It has to do with the fact of being seen as replaceable. I don't like to think of human beings as replaceable. And sure, when one door closes, another one opens. Sure. That's a fair assessment, I think, relatively. But to see your relationships in that same way, I don't know. I don't like that. I get easily attached to people and things. As I've said in previous videos, I'm a lonely person. I don't know when it started, when I realized that I became easily attached to things. When I was younger, I just remember being very afraid to lose anything. Losing my toys, my stuffed animals, anything of that sort felt almost world-ending when I was younger, when I was a child. And that feeling continued up until I was an adult. I remember before moving out of my parents' house, I was going through my things because I wasn't trying to pack every single thing that I ever owned up until that point because, basically my life was all my things at that point. So everything I'd owned from being a child until being, 22 years old, I had in some capacity at my parents' house. So I was going through my things. A lot of them were boxes. A lot of them were things I didn't use anymore. I was told to let those things go. And when I heard that, I was like, that's crazy. What do you mean, let them go? I'm going to need my Nintendo Switch box at some point. What do you mean let this go? I'm going to need my DS box at some point. Look at it. It's in mint condition. There's arguments to be made about keeping the boxes of things. I typically do. For whatever reason, I think that I'll need to reference the paperwork inside, even though I could take that out and store it in a folder somewhere. Or I just want to look at the box. I want to have it. It's some proof that I own it, more proof than having the thing itself. So why is that? Why do I get so attached to things? When I was a child, everything sort of having an ephemeral quality to them. If something broke in my household, my parents' rule was, you're not getting a replacement. I had quite a few siblings. Money was tight. So if, say, I broke my DS, I was not getting a second one. So I learned very quickly from a young age to cherish the things that I had. And I think some of that carried over into my relationships. I'm the kind of person who holds steadfast to the people in my life. Usually, whether I'm being ignored, whether I'm not able to get in touch with this person, whether this person is rude to me, whether this person has mistreated and abused me in whatever form or fashion that may take, typically, to keep them in my life, I'll put up with that. And it's not healthy. I know that it's not healthy. It's not right. And I shouldn't do that. But I'm so scared of losing people of shedding friendships or relationships, that typically that's what happens. That's what I do. I put up with it. Recently, I've come to the realization that I don't need to do that anymore. And it's not because people are like seasons coming in and out of your life, which I agree with, again, to an extent, is true. It's because at a certain point, I can only take so much. You can only put up with so much mistreatment before your eyes finally open and you realize the way this person was treating me was wrong. Me putting up with it was equally wrong. And it sucks when you're wrong about someone. You give them the benefit of the doubt and they let you down, and you give them the benefit of the doubt again and they let you down again. It becomes a vicious cycle where you just essentially learn to put up with being let down or put up with whatever mistreatment they seem to be inflicting on you. But, of course, I'm mentally ill. I'm depressed. I'm anxious. I'm sad. I'm lonely. And all of these things combined with, a tumultuous childhood make for, I want to say, difficult relationships. It's difficult for me to part from people. It's difficult for me to say goodbye, even if I've been wronged. Sometimes your hand is forced. You don't really have a say in the matter. It's time for the friendship, the relationship to end, and you've got nothing but to accept it. It sucks to be told you're important, that you're valuable, and that you matter, only for someone to turn around and basically spit in your face and tell you that they lied to you and none of that is true. It sucks when that decision is made for you, when someone decides they no longer want you in their life, that they no longer have a use for you, but you just got to roll with it. You've got to tell yourself that, okay, it ended this way, it's uncomfortable, it sucks, it stings, it hurts, but I'm better off without this person who clearly didn't even deem me worthy enough of having in their life. This person's done with me. I'm not going to beg them to stay in my life. I know that I'm a worthwhile person. I'm a good friend. I'm a good partner. So if they feel like that is done with, that I've lost my usefulness to them, then who am I to stop them? If you want to leave, leave. But in relation to a current situation, it came to a point where I've had enough. I critically looked back at the past few months of interactions, what's been going on, my emotional and mental state, and how I felt abused, neglected, used. And I said, I'm done. I'm putting my foot down. This is it. I'm not going to tolerate excuses. I'm not going to tolerate anything. I'm just done. Was the decision mine and mine alone? No, it was not. But my reaction was, much like when a romantic prospect tells you they're not interested in you, there's little else you can do besides say, okay. Begging someone to stay or begging for someone's attention is pretty much pointless. If they don't want to give it to you, what does begging do? It shows them the imbalance of power that they've got. It shows the relationship is not balanced. And when those power imbalances come into play, the relationship skews, and usually, abuse takes place. My whole point is don't put up with mistreatment or being used just because you're scared to lose somebody. If someone's treating you that poorly, if you're just a thing to somebody, they don't deserve you in their life. You're too important for that. You're more important than that. You deserve better. Life gets a lot easier when you stop putting up with poor treatment from people that you hold dear. Learning to let people go is not an easy thing. And there's that famous poem, One Art, by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster. Lose something every day, accept the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Then practice losing farther, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster. I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. I lost 2 cities, lovely ones, and vaster some realms I owned, 2 rivers, a continent. I miss them, but it wasn't a disaster. Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing's not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster. It's a poignant poem. It's one that's stuck with me. Learn to lose often. Become comfortable with the fact that people may not stick around. And it's especially difficult for me to reckon with this notion that at the end of the day, the only person that truly has your back is yourself, which is why it's so important to have a good relationship with yourself, first and foremost. Friends, family, partners, they're around for a time, usually, some of them longer than others. But what if they were to all disappear? What if they were to all go from your life? Then what? Who are you left with? For lonely people, that's an especially difficult conceit to deal with, to wrestle with. Because if all my friends and family were to leave me tomorrow, I think I would be in a really bad place. Mentally, physically, emotionally, whatever, what have you. But I would recover, I think, but just out of the sheer willpower that I have as a human to keep living. Because at the end of the day, like I said, the only person that you truly have in your life is yourself. There is no guarantee that anyone else is going to be there for you. Now, I love my friends dearly, the friends that have stuck by me, the friends that I've had for years, who I know have my back. They've been with me through thick and thin, and I love them and I cherish them, and I don't expect them to go anywhere anytime soon. But I have to be okay, me personally, knowing that there is a possibility, regardless of how slight, that they could go. Sometime, someday, they could just leave me. I don't quite know how to get to that point where I'm fully okay with the possibility of being totally by myself. I'm working on it. I'm learning, different strategies. But like I said, I deal with loneliness. I struggle with loneliness on a daily basis. It's not easy for me. I like having alone time, but I don't like feeling physically alone. I don't like knowing that, there's no one that cares about me besides myself, of course. And I do care about myself. I guess that's my thesis. It's learn to let people go, especially if they're mistreating you, especially if they're not meeting your standards for whatever type of relationship it may be. And people think it usually only applies to romantic relationships. Absolutely not. It applies to friendships as well. What good is a friend who is never there for you, or ignores you or demeans you? What good is that? That's not a good friendship. That's not a healthy friendship. That's not a healthy relationship to have. Absolutely applies to those as well. Don't tolerate abuse because you're scared of being alone. That's what I have to learn. I'm still learning that. Sometimes being alone is better than putting up with the abuse of being in whatever type of relationship with another person. A little bit of a serious video today, but I wanted to get on here and I wanted to just express myself in a very clear and concise way that people come and go. People have come and gone from my life all the time, and I distinctly remember at that same shitty job where my boss told me that I could be replaced, aping after an older guy who lived close by to my house. I wanted desperately to be his friend, and he played pretty good at being my friend, but I could see where he was coming from. I was younger. I was much younger than he was. Very nerdy, very awkward. It's basically like when your parents make you drag along your younger sibling to whatever event that you're going to. You got to keep an eye on them, and it feels like a burden more than anything else. And I think that's what that relationship, if you could even call it that friendship was to him, essentially. I was constantly asking him to hang out. I was constantly asking him to go do things, and he always gave me excuses. He gave me excuses. He gave me excuses. And I just stopped. One day I just stopped. I stopped texting him. I unadded him on everything. Did he care? Probably not. Probably not. And that hurts too. When you know that this person, you've given them so much power over you, you're trying to reclaim that power in a way that feels ineffectual. You unadded them, but if they're not texting you, if they're not responding to you, then what does that really do? And I think that it's powerful for yourself. And I've had to do that recently. It feels sort of pointless. Like I said, if they're already not answering you, if they're already done with you, so to speak. It's a way of reclaiming agency. It's a way of reclaiming your power that feels good. It feels somewhat cathartic. I have had to learn to be okay with that. I get frustrated. I definitely get frustrated, and I'm prone to frustration, and especially in situations where I have little control. I feel like that's a natural reaction, is to be frustrated by that situation, by the lack of control in the situation. So I try to reclaim it in the little ways that I can, and sometimes that's That's how it is. Sometimes hitting the block button is how you reclaim that control. Whether or not that person cares, and it's likely that they don't. If they're done with you, if they don't text you, like I said, if they don't want anything to do with you, and they've made that pretty apparent, they probably won't care. And you have to be okay with that. You did what you could. The relationship ran its course, and that's it. Let him go. I think about him every now and then. I do. I definitely do. I don't necessarily wish him harm. I don't know what he's doing. I haven't talked to him in years. It's been a long time. That's sort of off topic, but it's semi-related. Learn to let people go. Learn to let relationships die eventually. Sometimes it's more subtle. The relationship just naturally fades out. Sometimes it's more forceful. Either you or the person initiates the shutdown of the relationship, that it's time for it to be over or whatever. Either way, you just got to learn to live with it. You have to be okay with being alone, and that's difficult. It is very difficult. I'm getting there. I'm learning slowly how to do that. Just wanted to share this video. I hope that you guys learned something. If you didn't learn something, maybe you relate to what I'm talking about. Learning to let people go, learning to be by yourself, learning to be comfortable with that, and standing up for yourself more. That's a pivotal point that I want to emphasize. Stand up for yourself. It's tough to be alone, and when you're lonely, you put up with abuse sometimes. Damn it, put your foot down sometimes as well. Know when enough is enough. Know when a line has been crossed. Stand up for yourself, because if you don't stand up for yourself, no one else will. Certainly no one else is going to stand up for you. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a great rest of your day. As always, take care.